This is a Fox News alert as we witness chaos around the globe, including major violence in Gaza City, Iraq, and Syria. Well, questions are being raised about President Obama's failed foreign policy. And just yesterday, Fox's own Ed Henry pressed White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest on that exact topic. Take a look.
This Wall Street Journal story that sort of puts together all of the crises that are going on, Iranian talks, in addition to the violence in Gaza you've been asked about today, the ongoing civil war in Syria. Obviously, nobody can say that these are all the president's fault, but he's dealing with all of them. And the story basically says right at the top that, quote, U.S. global power seems increasingly tenuous to deal with all of these challenges. So my question is, how does the White House react to the notion that the president is a bystander to all these crises?
I think that there have been a number of situations in which you've seen this administration intervene in a meaningful way that has substantially furthered American interests and substantially improved the tranquility of the global community. Tranquility?
Really? Here with more on this important exchange, the man himself, Fox's own Ed Henry. Is there any specifics that they can point to? Look, I'm obviously a conservative. I'm a critic of the administration. But is there anything objectively that they pointed out to say, well, this is where that tranquility is, Ed?
Well, they try to point to Syria, which is obviously a very mixed bag. Because remember, when I asked the president at a recent news conference, what is the Obama doctrine? What is your guiding principle in your foreign policy after nearly 6 years in office? And he said, that it's caution, that you can't make a major mistake. Instead, he said, you hit singles, you hit doubles, occasionally you'll hit a home run. Interesting, because a column in the Washington Post today suggested the president's grounding into double plays with all of these crises around the world. I think Josh Earnest's point in the exchange that I had with him was that basically when it comes to Syria, the action the president took forced President Assad to turn over his chemical weapons. And that did calm things down. But ABC's John Karl followed up and said, look, can you really say that things are tranquil in places like Syria now? Listen.
I would acknowledge readily that there is a lot of conflict and instability and hotspots all over the globe. But it has not eliminated the United States' ability or the president's ability to look out for and even advance American interests in a variety of regions across the globe.
So that's their case, but remember, it was the president's own attorney general on Sunday who basically said that his greatest fear during his time in office is the fact right now that undetectable bombs and devices might be smuggled in from Syria into America, because that civil war is still going on. We've seen ISIS grow not just in Syria, but spread into Iraq as well. So very dangerous times right now, no doubt, Sean.
It's interesting because that answer was significantly different from the answer that you got about a substantially improved tranquility, in my opinion. Let me ask you another thing. It seems that the White House press corps is getting a little tougher on the administration. There was an exchange today with our colleague Wendell Goler and Josh Earnest. Let me play that.
Did I misread him, or was the president enjoying himself in his photo op this morning?
The president seemed to be in good spirits today.
But he said he didn't like photo ops, and he seemed to be having a pretty good time.
I think what the president's concern is people who put photo ops ahead of actually finding solutions to problems.
He kind of fell into that because Wendell asked him twice about 2 photo ops. And, oh, yeah, he loves photo ops, forgetting, obviously, last week the president said he didn't like them.
Well, sure, because last week the president was trying to make the point that, as you heard Josh there say, look, this is about substance, not photo ops, and that's why he didn't go to the border. But then today, I think Wendell was referring to the fact that the president was in this self-driving car. It was sort of a chance for him to get behind the wheel at some technology exhibit, and that was a photo op as well. But the president thought that was okay because it enabled him to make a point about how he wants more highway funding. He thinks the Republicans are not doing enough. So I think the bottom line is, when there's a chance for the president to use a photo op that will help him, he's going to do that. That's what all presidents of both parties do. Last week, though, he didn't like the fact that if he did what might be seen as a photo op on the border, it might blow up in his face because the crisis has been growing.
All right, Ed, for once in my life, I will refrain from comment. I'll let it speak for itself.
That is a first.
Thank you so much for being with us. And, the Wall Street Journal article that Ed was referring to in that exchange with Josh Earnest, it reads in part, quote, a convergence of security crises is playing out around the globe, from the Palestinian territories and Iraq to Ukraine and the South China Sea, posing a serious challenge to President Barack Obama's foreign policy and reflecting a world in which U.S. global power seems increasingly tenuous. The breadth of global instability now unfolding hasn't been seen since the late 1970s. Here was reaction. Fox News strategic analyst, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. I read that article, And I kind of said to myself, wow, I thought it was very hard hitting. And when you think about it, Colonel, I cannot think of an area where foreign policy has been a success, or to use the words, where tranquility exists. Reaction?
Well, except for the Keystone Pipeline, things are pretty quiet with Canada.
No, okay.
I'll
give you, but did they do anything to create that tranquility? No. We've always had good relations with them.
No, I mean, it's just, you often hear people say Obama's the worst president ever, and it sounds like hyperbole. But in the foreign policy and security spheres, without doubt, I'm speaking as a student of American history, without doubt, Obama is by far the worst foreign policy and security president we have ever had. We have never before had such a combination of pervasive, extensive failures on virtually every continent. At the same time, we have the shameless self-congratulations from the White House. And Sean, I really think you have to go back to the roots of this. Obama came to office in early 2009, really prejudiced against America. In foreign policy, he saw America and the West, and certainly Israel, as the problem, or certainly the cause of the problems, and Islamist extremism and Russian intransigence as effects. But the world's more complicated than that. And, as I always go back to, Peter's Maxim 41, when America is weak, the world suffers. And I will tell you, America has not been this weak in my lifetime. Even Jimmy Carter looks relatively strong by comparison on two fronts. One, Carter had a strong sense of morality and ethics, personal and professional ethics. He respected the office of the presidency. And second, Carter was willing to learn. As others have pointed out, by the end of his presidency, he had wised up. There's no sign that Obama is wising up. In fact, he seems to be disappointed in the world, as if not just America, but the whole world has let him down.
That is a stinging rebuke. I mean, you're a serious, sober analyst. I would even argue it's more pervasive than that, in as much as, if America's not there, who's going to lead the world? He was uniquely qualified to unite the Western world and the Muslim world. That hasn't worked out well. And the tides were to recede. That hasn't happened. And then if you add being the worst economic president, I think things are really rough right now, Colonel.
Yeah, and they are. And, it's very important to make one point here. This is nothing for conservatives or conservative-leaning independents to take delight in. Don't gloat over Obama's failures for political reasons. This is about foreign policy, security, and the future of our country and the well-being of the entire globe. This is serious stuff. It's not just politics. And you look at the litany of Obama's disastrous failures. Russia. Hey, when's the last time you heard anybody talk about Putin giving back Ukraine? We had that catastrophic nuclear deal where we gave away important dual-use systems. The Russians gave up junk that was headed for the stockpile. Then you have Iran nukes. They're playing us like a violin. Iraq, the rise of a caliphate state, a terror state. Obviously, Syria, almost 180,000 dead, although nobody knows how many for sure. The reaction in Egypt, the mess in Libya. You've got Boko Haram in Nigeria. You've got a mess in Somalia, South Sudan, tragedies nobody even hears about. I mean, the list goes on and on. North Korea. China is belligerent. I mean, you can throw a dart at the map of the world. And Venezuela, how about that? How are we doing down there, folks? Central America, our own southwest border, which is certainly a security issue. And it's almost as if this president wants to change America any way he can, including opening our borders.
I can't say it any better. A stinging rebuke. Thank you, Colonel Peters. Good to see you.